Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make Danish dough, and I'll be posting a couple videos showing you how to use this Danish dough. So let's get started. So here's all the ingredients that you're going to need. You're going to need some flour, sugar, instant dry yeast, salt, an egg, milk that's been warmed to between 100 and 110 degrees, which is just warm to the touch, vanilla extract, and lots of butter that we're going to use later. And you're also going to need some additional flour for dusting. So first, into a large bowl, add in the flour, the sugar, yeast, and the salt. You don't want to pour the salt directly on top of the yeast or it will kill the yeast. So you want to put the yeast on one side of the bowl and the salt on the other side. And then mix them together until they're combined. And then add in the egg, milk, and vanilla extract. And then mix this together until it comes together into a dough. And then lightly flour the work surface. Place the dough onto the floured work surface. And knead the dough for a few minutes until it's smooth. If the dough is sticking, you can add a little more flour, but not too much. You don't want too much additional flour to absorb into the dough. Then lightly grease the bowl that you had the dough in before. Place your dough into the bowl. Cover it tightly in plastic wrap. Then let this dough rest in the fridge for at least 2 hours, or you can leave it in overnight. It's not going to rise very much, but that's totally fine. And keep the butter in the fridge so it stays cold. Then at least 30 minutes before you're ready to use the dough, it's time to make the butter block. And you want to take your butter out of the fridge at least 10 minutes before so it can soften a bit, but it shouldn't be at room temperature. So you just take the butter and cut it into pieces. And then add the butter into an 8-inch square pan lined with plastic wrap. Then add a sheet of plastic wrap on top of it. Then you need to press it all together until it forms one piece. Then once it's in one piece, take it out and use a rolling pin just to smooth out the top. Try not to make it bigger. And make sure all the pieces are sticking together. And then place this into the fridge for at least 30 minutes until it's cold again. Once the dough is rested in the fridge, you can take it out. And you'll see it hasn't risen much, but that's totally fine. So now lightly flour the work surface. Place the dough onto the floured surface. And then roll it out into an 18 by 12 inch rectangle. Trying to make the thickness even and the edges straight. And if you have excess flour on the dough, you need to brush it off. And then remove the butter block from the fridge. Take off the top sheet of plastic wrap. Then cut the block in half. Then place one half on top of the dough in the center. And fold over each side. And if there's any excess flour, you need to brush it off. Excess flour will prevent flaky layers from forming in your Danish. Then place the other half of the butter block on top of it. and fold over the other end of the dough. If the butter is still pretty cold at this point, you can keep going. If it's too soft, then wrap it up and put it in the fridge. It's very important to keep the butter cold. If it gets too soft, it's going to absorb into the dough and it won't form any flaky layers that Danish is known for. But you also don't want the butter too hard or it will break into pieces and it will miss some flaky layers in your Danish. So if it's too hard, then let it sit to let it soften a bit. So lightly flour the work surface and lightly flour the top of the dough. And then roll it out until it's a 12 by 24 inch rectangle. To help get it started, press the rolling pin on top and rock it back and forth. Do it a few more times. And then keep rolling it out until it's a 12 by 24 inch rectangle. And try and keep the thickness even and the edges as straight as possible. So once you've rolled it out, you then need to fold it. So fold one end about 2/3 of the way across. And brush off any excess flour. And then fold the other end on top of it. So this rolling and folding is called turning the dough. And you need to repeat this a total of 5 times. If the butter is still cold, you can do another turn. If not, you need to wrap it up and put it in the fridge so it gets cold again. So if the butter is still cold, do it again. Lightly flour the work surface. Roll it out to a 12 by 24 inch rectangle. And if the butter is getting too soft while you're rolling it out at any point, then wrap it up and put it in the fridge for 30 minutes so it gets cold again. If it's already rolled out very big, then fold it up. Wrap it in plastic wrap. And place it into the fridge until it's cold again. And then once it's chilled, remove it from the fridge and continue rolling it out. And then once it's rolled out to size, fold it in thirds again. Brush off the excess flour. And then if it's still very cold, then you can do another turn. Just don't do more than 2 turns at a time. It's super important to keep the butter cold, and letting it rest after 1 or 2 turns lets the dough rest and it makes it easier to roll out. And if you have trouble keeping track of how many turns it's gone through, then make an indent with your finger. So this is the 3rd turn, so I need to do 3. Each indent indicates how many turns it's gone through. And that's for just in case you have trouble keeping track of how many turns it has gone through already. So now wrap it up in plastic wrap. And then place it into the fridge for 30 minutes. And then once it's chilled, remove it from the fridge. And repeat that same rolling and folding process until you do it a total of 5 times. Again, if the butter is getting too soft, you need to wrap it up and put it back in the fridge until it's cold again. So just wrap it back up and put it back in the fridge for another 30 minutes. Okay, and now this is the final turn. And then after the last turn, wrap it up and place it into the fridge for at least 6 hours before using it in a recipe. And I'm going to be posting a few recipes using this Danish dough. So that's how to make homemade Danish dough. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.